And we are live. Hello. We are so excited. We are revisiting one of our first WISPN community conversations with one of our proud alumni. I am Talia Rodriguez. This is Community Conversations in the Office of Civic and Community Engagement. I am the Associate Director of what's called the Westside Promise Neighborhood and elated to be here to talk with my guest. And I am going to give her the floor so she can introduce herself. And we're going to jump right into talking about her dream career and why coming to SUNY Buffalo State University was what got her to that place.
Yeah, I'm Julia Hamilton. I am the curator of the Steel Plant Museum of Western New York, and I went to Buff State for my undergraduate degree in philosophy and art history and my master's degree in museum studies.
We are so proud of you. You are such a significant alum. Thank you for visiting with us on our radio station. So it was super cool to have you on 91.3 WBNY. Shout out to that team, as well as every other SUNY campus that has student-led radio. We love it. I'm so excited to have you in this podcast space. I know that we had a lot of plays and a lot of interest in you talking about how your student experience leveraged to both on the job and kind of helping you find your place. So can you say a little bit about what it was like to be a student at Buffalo State University? We're a university now, everyone.
Yeah.
And say a little bit about maybe some of the hands-on learning that you did while you were with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I really fell into my core group of friends when I joined the Women in Philosophy Club at Buffalo State, led by Dr. Blessing and Dr. Duffy. They are two amazing women philosophers in a field that is predominantly men. So they're really incredible women to work with and to look up to. And that's really where I kind of got my start becoming more social. I was very, very homesick when I started at Buff State. I'm from a very small town, and it was just a culture shock coming. Buffalo is the biggest city I've ever lived in, so it was a huge difference for me. But I'm so happy that I went to Buff State. I did a lot of fun things during my undergraduate career. I studied abroad, which was amazing. I also joined other clubs like Ethics Bowl and was in an honor society for the philosophy department, which was really exciting. And during graduate school is where I really um, fell in with doing service learning programs, and actually how I got in contact with the civic and community engagement department, because that's what my courses were through in the museum studies grad.
All right, y'all. So I think we lost Julia. I am going to end our broadcast, but as you just heard a little bit about our experiential learning and all of the fun things that we do on campus, Julia was with us and she interviewed on 91.3 WBNY, and she is actually joining our space again. Hey, thank no, you know what? I had a feeling that you might come back, but I was just saying how you had joined us on 91.3 and how
Mm-hmm.
you're the ideal alum. I think a lot of what we think about with Buffalo State University is building this Bengal family and it just growing and growing and growing, being a part of it. So I absolutely love that you're an alum and that you chose to do undergrad and graduate school with us. So can you just tell us a little bit about what it was like to make that decision to join us on campus, and maybe some of like your favorite things about dorming, and staying with us? Because I know, and if you'll let me recall, I feel like you are from Corning, New York.
Yes, that's very true. Yep.
Shout out to Corning.
Yeah, yes. Shout out to my hometown. I love it there. But living on campus was fun. I lived in Perry Hall during my freshman year, and I had two roommates. And then I lived in one of the towers. I don't remember. I lived in the towers, and that was really it on my living on campus experience, because I decided to study abroad. So,
Oh my gosh, tell me
mhm,
everything about studying abroad and what it was like to go abroad as a Buffalo State college student at that time, but
mhm, mhm.
being an ambassador for your country. Like, just talk to me about where you went. I'm so excited to explore that part of your experience.
Yeah, that was one of the best times in my life. I actually, that's how I met my boyfriend right now. We both were Buff State students and we signed up for this program, and then the rest is history. But we went to Siena, Italy for the Siena program that was at Buffalo State at that time. I think it was, I should know my Siena program history a little bit better, but I think it was one of the first or oldest study abroad programs in either SUNY or at Buffalo State. So it was really, really incredible to be a part of that community. But living in Italy and beautiful Tuscany and Siena was a once in a lifetime experience it was incredible.
That is like, first, I've never been to Europe, so I'm so excited for you that you went to Europe. Tell me what
Mm-hmm.
it's like to be like an ambassador for our country, because I feel like everyone, obviously, did they recognize you as being American? Could they tell? Do you
Oh
speak
yeah, for sure.
Spanish?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they could tell like all of our Nike sneakers and we're just like gawking and taking pictures at everything. But I'm sure. I had one experience. A guy asked me, we were in a train station somewhere and he was like, "Where's the bathroom? Do you know where the bathroom is?" And I was like, "Oh, it's right around the corner." He goes, "Wow, your English is really good." And I was like, "I'm American." He was also American. It was just a funny moment, but they everybody always knows when you're an American.
Well, I'm just so excited that you're willing to take the time with us to talk about Buffalo State University, how being a study abroad student kind of impacted you, and also like, the elements of, we call it experiential learning and service based learning, because
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know we are the first teachers in 1899. Our school opened up as a normal school with a predominantly female teaching class, which at that time was pretty unique. So, Julia, you stand in the legacy of very strong women who and people who continue to share that legacy. So tell us a little bit. So you went to Italy, you did graduate school with us, you met your boyfriend there. You are the best alum. You've been to our
All because
radio.
of Buffalo State. Yes.
You are Buffalo State University. Julie, tell me a little bit about, for those of people who are tuning in right now, your current position, and kind of how unique it is, and if there's ways that they can support you in doing your work, because I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm the curator of the Steel Plant Museum of Western New York, and I am really just kind of been reflecting on all of my time working with Buffalo State and doing service learning classes in graduate school. That's how I was introduced to the civic and community engagement department, and I felt like that's where I got all of my practical experience. I was doing something not just for a grade and for myself, it was actually impacting the community and doing something for other people. And I think that there's just more to invest in that. And ultimately, I did well in those courses, but really I felt like I was doing more for the community. And that was way more rewarding than an A in a class.
Absolutely, and I think for me, that's also what drove me there, drove me there as
Mm-hmm.
a staff person. It's just this idea that our university culture is about the betterment of our entire community, and also, like, I love that it's embedded inside the city of Buffalo. So you said Buffalo is your favorite new largest city. Did you? I mean, what did you eat when you first got to campus? Like, were you in the cafeteria? Did you go to Grand Street? Because I feel like just having this like unique experience, like when people were checking in on you
Mm-hmm.
in your hometown, were you telling them like you were having buckets of fun, and did you encourage them to join us? Because I feel like when you dorm, you really get the experience of the student union and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always like remember we would go and like get snacks or like a late night meal or something at like the side of the union where they have like Subway and all of that. We would always go there and just like get a bunch of food, and that was always fun to do. And it was like what a life I lived. You could go and like swipe your meals on a plastic card. You didn't have to worry about like real money or anything. Like it was kind of like already taken care of. So you could just kind of that was like one less thing to worry about and focus on, which was really cool. But um, honestly, I think that I remember just doing a lot of like community events or like within my certain hall. I just remember my freshman year, the RAs really worked to do a lot of like events to make people mingle and little like mixer kind of things. And I remember we would have community conversations too about things that were going on, yeah, around um, our community and our country. And I also remember that we had um, presentations on racism and talking about race. And we're all, freshmen in college exploring, ourselves and who we are. And it was just one of the most positive things that stuck out with me dorming on campus.
And thank you so much for that, Julia, because our resident assistants work so hard. Our Dean of Students office is continually taking feedback, right? Because that's one of our, I
Mm-hmm.
think, one of our
Yeah.
most amazing and challenging opportunities is how to make our students feel at home on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, how do you bridge kind of processing the experience that you all are having, which is getting to know each other and yourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
then the amazing things that are happening around, and then our storied history, which I know for everyone. I'm like this historian dork, but our campus was at one time a working farm, and
Mm-hmm.
before obviously indigenous land. So there is so much rich history that I think we have to stand before, like when we talk about dorming and like all those fun things about how do you become a
Mm-hmm.
big. So for me, Julia, like one of the things I love about you and your position right now is that you really are the safeguard or like the curator of so many stories of families who have intersections with SUNY Buffalo State University and a really strong history of service in the steel plants and within a very strong industry that I think we talked about civically, unions and different groups like that. So like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me what it's been like collecting these stories and being able to learn the stories of, thousands of our neighbors being the head curator of the Steel Plant Museum.
Oh my God, it's been incredible. I didn't realize this. I didn't grow up here. I grew up, in Corning. We mentioned that, and Corning is a factory town, and they had the glassworks and now a museum that's built where the factory was and is, and that was such a huge part of our community. And so working in this position is really incredible because I'm learning how deep the steel roots are in Western New York. And truthfully, without a steel plant, you wouldn't have a community. The community was built, Lackawanna was built after the steel plant came in right at the turn of the century. It was a Lackawanna Steel Company, and a whole city was built because of the steel plant that was there. And then ultimately that became Bethlehem Steel, but it was the produced jobs for hundreds and thousands of people. There were sometimes like 3 generations who had worked in the steel plant. So it was not just the family, that you worked with and that you've known for so long. You will go to work together every day. You also, maybe your grandpa and your dad and you all work at the steel plant too. So it's really incredible to hear those stories.
Right. And, I think that you being at the helm of collecting the stories,
Mm-hmm.
curating the volunteers, right? Because I know that a lot of your position, because you shared with me prior on our interview with 91.3 WBNY, is working with the volunteers who are also board members, and is kind of just learning that rich history. And for me, so much of the steel plant history, is providing a safe haven from people who were escaping the South and people who were coming from Puerto Rico. We talked about Casimiro
Mm-hmm.
Rodriguez. I
Mm-hmm.
think correspondence with who his family and literally the legacy of the Hispanic Heritage Council, which he has led so valiantly for the last couple of years, started in steel plant with steel plant
Right.
kids. So I
Right.
was
Right.
excited to connect y'all. So Julia, you have a tall order. If there is a way that our audience can, listen in, I know I want them to visit you. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
visit. I'm going to go live. So please be prepared for that day.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Let's do it.
we want them to like you on Facebook. So hopefully they'll share your Facebook, and then they'll also be able to be tuned into some of the events that you're planning. So I just wanted to take some of the time to talk about those events, one of which I am super excited about for my own personal reasons. And I think I'm kind of hinting to which one. And just kind of also just say how proud I am of you that you work in an organization that is staffed by volunteers. So how can people volunteer with you, our champion volunteer, Julia?
Yeah, absolutely. So volunteers are encouraged you can call the museum or email the museum. We have some information on our website. It's www.steelplantmuseumwny.org. and all of our museum information is on there as well. It's incredible working with volunteers. I'm lucky they're our board, and they also are all former steelworkers. So I have, amazing firsthand stories and experience and knowledge to really help capture and accurately present all of these stories and all of this information. We have a couple of exciting things happening at the museum. I just yesterday posted, we have 5 internship opportunities. So I encourage any student to take a look and apply. They are also on our website. You can find them on our support page. And we have a very exciting event happening in September, and it's our Rosie the Riveter Tea Party tribute party. So we kind of do like a small little spread of cake and, tea and little snacks and fun things. And we just celebrate and honor these women who changed history right in our own backyard.
I cannot be more, I literally could scream into my computer. I was screaming on the radio. We talked about this. I'm literally screaming into the microphone, and you're sitting next to me, Julia. I tell you how excited I am about Rosie the Riveter. I take being a blue collar girl very seriously. That lineage, having so many generations of my mom's family from Ireland work in factories. I think it's incredible that you are mixing, female empowerment and history and food, which is like all my favorite things. And I know that you were telling the story of like one of the Rosies that actually came to visit. You were saying, I think she was 19 years old. How old was she?
So I met her last year and she was 100 years old. So she's an incredible woman. So her job was, she's a pretty short woman, small little short lady. And it was her job during the war. She worked at the Curtiss airplane factory. And so it was her job to crawl up into the nose of the airplane and hold it into place while the other girls riveted and like screwed it into place. And like, that is just like, and they didn't have ear protection or eye, like nothing. They just went up there and did it. And she just was volunteering and serving for her country.
And we talked about so many of the Rosie women, Black women, Native American women, Latino women who also were a generation of women who engaged in childcare for the first time, having to leave their children at home, going to take the positions of the men in the factories, also writing their men, growing victory gardens, buying bonds. The way that we all as people invested in that effort, I think, is so reminiscent of our families today who are in service. So obviously acknowledging those steel plant workers who are also veterans and active service members, as well as our students who are active service members. And, I'm just so grateful that you are planning that event to lift up that history. And I feel like if you're watching either on Instagram or you're on YouTube and you know someone that was a Rosie, or if you have steel plant history, I'm asking for Julia, send me your pictures. I will send them to Julia. Like sound bites, letters. Is there an end to what type of things that you curate? And can you tell us, just as we look at the 20-minute mark, about some of the coolest things that you have without, spoiling the surprises, but like some of the coolest things you've been able to curate. Sorry, that was a tongue twister.
So really we try to keep our collection in the scope of Western New York, but I would say there is no limit to what we, collect. We review everything as a board, but we collect oral histories, we collect, we have hard hats, we have papers, documents, catalogs, everything. So we love to look at that stuff. And even if you have something and you don't quite know if it's related, you can always reach out to us, and we will happily, see if we can take it or look at it for you, and what kind of analysis we could provide for that.
Or at least try to figure out what it is. And I think, Julia, you are so reminiscent to me of what is the difference. I always talk about the difference of Buffalo business. This idea that you can be a regular worker and that there are people out there that want to curate the history of workers, right? And that we have a business community that's interested in making sure that there are those places to do so. So can you to me about some of the folks that either started the Steel Plant Museum of Western New York and or like kind of the larger apparatus in which you operate? Because I know there's something special about the building.
Yes. So our building is formerly known as it was Buffalo Color, which is what made dye for blue jeans. And eventually there were some foreign competition, so that's just how it happens sometimes. But our building has a couple of institutions. It's called the Heritage Discovery Center, and we have a Western New York Railroad Heritage Society. We have a Buffalo Irish Genealogical Society, a Geology Society, a Lighthouse Society, tons of institutions, all based on Western New York history. And it's really, you come and you learn so many things, and they're all vastly different, but they all connect, and just kind of grow on this idea of how awesome Buffalo is.
I have to take my mom to the Irish like it's so cool. And I
Yeah.
think the other things that I just want to point out is like how you work in cooperation with all of the other culturals,
Mhm.
right? Because there are so many different types of communities. So I feel like our cultural community, like I'm just in awe of your partnerships, that all that you have, and I'm so excited about the Railroad Museum. My tragic history with the railroad and how
Mhm. Mhm.
he was a railroad worker and he passed during work. So I think it's so important that those places exist and that they're supported by Bengals and other people who have a passion for service. So
Yeah.
Julia, if you could just give us some advice, right? I'm going to just kind of ask you to kind of just give us two categories of advice. One, if you are a student right now and you're kind of trying to find your place and you're like, hey, I'm not sure if I know what my passion is, what piece of advice would you give to them? And then also, if you are a unique leader of any type and you are leading an institution such as yourself, which I know that we've talked about like tonation and appearance and how people might be surprised that you're the head curator
Mhm.
for this reason,
Mhm.
what advice would you give them?
Okay, so the first one, I would definitely say take a philosophy class, because it just challenge yourself, challenge the way you're
First
thinking. And I
answer.
have to plug my favorite department on campus. Um, but also just especially as an undergrad, just don't put too much pressure on yourself. I was an art history and philosophy major, and the first thing that would come out of somebody's mouth was, "What are you going to do with that?" And I was like, "I don't know." But I should have responded, "Whatever I want," because you can do whatever you want with that. You just have to be creative with how you carve your path and what opportunities you dive into. And let's see, what was the second one again? Were you refreshing on the second
Okay,
question?
the second one was if you are a unique leader for
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
reason, what advice would you give them? And if you want to reflect on any of the times that people were surprised to learn that you are the head curator of an entire institution. And just what advice would you give to them, and or if you wanted to reflect on any of those moments?
Yeah, I would just say always, I don't know, I feel like I always have my ear to the ground wherever I go, listening for people. What are they talking about? What are they wearing? Does somebody have a Steelworkers Union shirt on, or a Bethlehem Steel shirt? Whatever. I'm always just kind of looking like, can I talk to you? Do you know? How can I like let you know about my institution? But I would just say just be open and just listen, because I think that's where you learn the most is when you're listening and genuinely trying to learn about others and their stories.
So Dottie Gallagher from the Buffalo Niagara Partnership was my absolutely first interview. No big deal, right? She is a huge legend. So
That's
one of the
incredible.
things, right? She's amazing. So, and one of the things she said that I think will always stick with me is good leaders are good listeners. And
Hmm.
I feel like I'm hearing that message from you, Julia, is that if you're a leader of any type of institution or organization, the first thing you want to hone on are your listening skills.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we have two ears and one mouth. I don't know. That's just what I do. I
Okay,
learned
well,
that in kindergarten as a substitute teacher. I was the teacher said that, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
well made point. Okay, so I could not script a better interview with an alum that I'm just so genuinely proud of, and also as a SUNY colleague, because you and I both made decisions as young people to invest in graduate school in SUNY, and that's really both led us to our present career. So,
Mhm.
as we close, Julia, any words for any SUNY graduate? Because our SUNY grads are graduating in 2 weeks.
Yes.
We are so proud of y'all, all of our SUNY grads, especially those at Buffalo State University. But any words as we close this space, because couldn't script a better interview for our graduates next week.
Um, just keep going, just keep trying. You're graduating. If you're graduating with your undergraduate degree, it's scary. It's you're diving out into the real world for the first time. Just don't put too much pressure on yourself. And same for graduate students too. Just be easy on yourself and always do your best and just keep going because really cool things will happen.
And I want to add, if anyone has any questions about the Western New York Steel Plant Museum, about hopefully curation, and about leading a cultural, please reach out to Julia. Please reach out to the amazing people who started the Steel Plant Museum of Western New York, and just wanting to acknowledge your patience in me learning the technology. So thank you for re-interviewing with me a second time. And we're going to be available to see this on YouTube. We are live right now, and I'm so excited that you're able to share your passion for Buffalo State University with us. So thank you for spending time. And in our audience, make sure to follow Julia and the Western New York Steel Plant Museum.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I had a great